welcome to another episode of Out of the Woodwork podcast, brought to you by Axminster Tools with me, Sean Evelegh. In this episode, I talk to Joseph Bray, furniture designer, maker, educator and head of Wood School at the Sylva Foundation. Joe shares how his concerns for the future of craft education became the catalyst for a successful Churchill Fellowship. And his fellowship experiences continue to shape the Sylva Wood School, bridging the gap between education and professional life, as well as finding ways of promoting the use of underutilised homegrown timbers. So thank you for joining me, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm feeling great, Sean. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, well, it is again. For people that don't know, you got me into Rycote Wood. The first time I met you, I was actually exhibiting one of my school pieces at the Young Furniture Makers Awards. It was probably a very ugly coffee table, a huge thing. But we had a great chat, and then I came for an interview. It was the other way around this time. You were interviewing me. And,
yes, that's right.
You let me in, which I'm very grateful for, because it was an amazing experience. But sadly, you taught the first years, didn't you, every year? But then the year I joined, you decided to teach the second year. So I didn't get your amazing teaching.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, Sean, without actually experiencing it. I feel really guilty about that, actually. We encouraged you to come, and then I left, I think.
Yeah,
Not long after that.
You left, so I got a year of you. I remember you did part wisdom as you walked past our workbenches, mine and Alex's. But you left a year later, and now you're at Sylva. I think we're jumping a lot. I want to hear about your background first. Were you always teaching, or did you do furniture design and making before you went into education?
No, I didn't go straight into teaching. I suppose educationally, I had a great experience at school. I wasn't at a time where woodwork was part of the curriculum as a standalone subject, but I had an amazing teacher who was inspirational, and we made furniture, whether it was part of the curriculum or not, and that was after school, evening, lunch times. It was something I really enjoyed passionately. And I studied in High Wycombe post that. I went to do a degree in, it's called Furniture Design and Craftsmanship. It was incredibly difficult to get in at that point. And my first job was for a furniture designer maker called Richard Williams. He's, in fact, I saw him only a week or so ago, and he's been in business now for, I think, up to 30 years, 25, 30 years. He's an amazing designer, and frighteningly an amazing maker as well, and he actually made it into the workshop. So I worked for him for 5.5 years, and that was, effectively, I would say, as an apprentice, working through to ultimately becoming workshop manager or production coordinator, I think, as we called it at that time. And I suppose I always knew that I had this aspiration to teach, and I did a little bit of work at Rycote Wood in its former location in Tame, working with autistic young adults. Yeah. That was one-to-one. It was challenging as a first teaching thing, but incredibly rewarding. And then I just remember, we were in the same workshop as all these students studying furniture design and make, and I was just thinking, I've got so much to offer. I could really, really engage with what these guys and girls were doing. And a job came up, and then it felt like a wrench to leave Richard, and that I wasn't prepared, and I didn't have enough expertise and knowledge. But once I got into Rycote Wood, I was eventually there for just short of 14 years. So,
was the desire to make your own pieces there at the back of your mind, or was it just passing on the knowledge?
That's also a brilliant question. If you become a full-time teacher and you invest your time and energy in it in the way that I did, which was all-encompassing, you don't have time to make anything.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Eventually, I recognized how passionate I was about passing on knowledge and educating. And, being a teacher in an environment like that is much, much more than showing someone how to cut a dovetail. It's so much more. Whether it's putting your arm around someone or encouraging people somewhere else, or it's engaging them in a design process. I didn't teach CAD, but there's the full spectrum of things. It's not just the woodwork. And I loved it. I really loved it. It was again another wrench to leave. I was so lucky, aren't I? Two jobs before this one, and I just probably didn't really want to leave either.
Yeah, I've never asked this before, but I wonder, as an educator, you were educating the first years at Rycote Wood, which didn't have a lot of experience at all. So even though you didn't get to make your own pieces, did you kind of feel like, by the third year, the pieces they were making were sort of your babies? You're like, I got them to that stage. These are my designs.
Right. Well, I think that design is a collaborative process. And I certainly think in an education environment it is. And I think it was always interesting because some students over the years got very possessive, and, it was their thing and somebody else had copied their design. You think, well, I helped that student as much as I've helped you, and I know how much input everyone's given, so I think somebody said something to me in the first year that I taught, and it was Richard Williams. He came in and he said, after the show, he said, "It's really good, Joe. I can really see your mark on the show." And I think he meant that in a kind of creative way as well as anything else. And I thought, great, that's a really good thing. But actually, a couple of years down the line, I thought, that's a really bad thing because it shouldn't look like my work. And I think you go to some degree shows or go to new designers and there's like a house style. You see the work and think, oh, did I see that last year? Or was it the year before?
Yeah.
It's very similar. And I think that is the beauty of Rycote Wood. Before me, during my time and after, that the students' work is about the students. And they're supported by, brilliant staff, but actually it's the voice of the student. And I think that a parent came to me, and I can't remember how many years later it was, but a parent came to me and said, you should be really proud of this. All of the work looks so different. And that, when I first started teaching, wasn't the medal that the tick.
Yeah.
But later on it was. And I think that you become a bit more selfless, I suppose, and you recognize that your role in educating, and that's to assist and cajole and support and encourage. And it's not about you. It's about them.
Yeah. But I do recommend anyone listening to go to Rycote Wood end of year show, which is based in Oxford, because they're students, but the work they're producing is professional standard, and there's so many different designs, and you can be inspired and even buy pieces. So it is a great place to go.
I absolutely agree, Sean. I think without doubt that it is at degree level. I did some research the other day for something, and I think there's something like 27 courses nationally that have, at degree level, that have furniture or 3D design with wood within the title. That's a lot. Yeah. I doubt very much whether anyone other than Rycote Wood's program, Furniture Design and Make, actually teach people to make furniture in the way that we would understand that. Yeah. Actually, the students learn how to use a handsaw. They go into a machine shop and are fully trained in using all of the woodworking machines. They are creative yet craftspeople. The balance of the two. It's unique. And when I studied, there was a choice. I didn't go to Rycote Wood. I went to High Wycombe, and sadly they closed everything down there, which was a big shame, very sad kind of moment. But they're still kind of holding that torch, and there's space for everybody. But I agree. Go to Rycote Wood, go and see my former colleague Drew and what he's doing on the looking after the degree course now. I think it's in good hands. I look back now fondly. I really enjoyed the time, but I'm really enjoying what I'm doing now.
Out of the Woodwork is brought to you by Axminster Tools. Nobody is more passionate or knowledgeable about woodworking than us. A market leader in mail order tools and the machinery industry. We offer a friendly and personal service to many thousands of woodworkers around the world. Whether you're a trade professional, a business owner, an education leader, an amateur DIYer, or a hobby enthusiast, we share your passion. To discover more from Axminster Tools, just visit www.axminstertools.com. So, Sylva, at the time they approached you, how far developed was it? Was it like a startup? Because I know what they're doing now is amazing things, but was it at what stage of the Sylva journey did you join, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. I'll try and be succinct. So Sylva Foundation is an environmental and forestry charity, and they were set up 13 years ago. So it's relatively young, but full of incredible people with incredible knowledge. We'd worked with them on some various projects over the years, and I think about 8 or 9 years ago, they were given the opportunity to take on a farmyard and the buildings within that farmyard, if they came up with a good idea about how to use them. And the CEO, Gabriel Hemery, actually engaged people like myself and designer makers and other people to think about what would be a good use of this in terms of working with wood. So initially, the first thing that they did is they changed the use of a former potato store into a series of sheltered workshops. So we have units with tenants of varying sizes. The units, not the tenants. They all do various things related to wood. Might need to cut that bit out. Of different sizes. We have people making outdoor oak furniture. We have a boat builder. We've got loads of people making furniture of different types, for whether it be fitted or bespoke, freestanding. We have an upholsterer. We've got a picture framer. So there was this idea of creating a community of people. To set up on your own is so tough. You need a really unique set of circumstances to really just go and make that happen. Yeah. So providing access to equipment. So we have a machine shop that's shared, managed and maintained by us, but used by the individuals who are tenants. And the opportunity for someone to help lift something. You must find this in your workshop at home. Someone to talk to, someone to help lift something, someone to bounce ideas off, someone to answer the phone, perhaps. All those things that are really tough on your own. And they had a plan and a vision, and one person signed up, and they didn't know if it would work out. They just really didn't know how it would pan out. But actually, now it did. It's full of people that are working in wood-related ways, and we always have a waiting list. We've got people desperate to join us.
On the tenant agreements, like time, there's a certain amount of time someone can be there.
Yeah, so we have. So there's two. I don't try not to make it too complicated, but we have workshops with closable doors and locks that are tenants, and they have tenancies that would be a normal agreement between a workshop owner and a maker, for example, and they would maybe be 3-5 years, depending on the individual contract. We also have this very large area in the centre of the building, which we used to call it hot benching. It's not very hot. Nobody wants to leave. We stopped calling it that. And we now call it startup. And what we have there is we have an area of the building where it's a shared space with a demarked area per individual user. And they have a bench, and they have the opportunity to bring in some small scale machines, perhaps, but portable power tools and hand tools. And that is very, very inexpensive. And we found that, over time, it's perhaps too inexpensive. So what we've done is we've given that a time frame. So people can only stay there for a maximum of 3 years. And what we're trying to do is encourage this idea of people, or churn, basically, people coming in and moving on and moving their business. So, and there's a third aspect, which is business incubation workshops. So Rycote would give one to a graduate each year. We have 2 of our own, and the Rycote Wood one is for a year. Ours are for 3 years, and they have an escalating rent. So they pay 50% rent year 1, 75% rent year 2, full rent year 3, and then they have to leave. So we're trying to be a combination of things, a space where we have people with these broad range of skills and experiences that are willing to share. This opportunity for startup, whether it be for incubation or inexpensive bench rent. But we want to see people move through into to develop their own businesses and for them to be successful. So I think a great example is there's a duo called Lula James. So Andrew Joy, Daisy, Lula Brunsden. They were Rycote graduates. Maybe you crossed with them. I'm not sure.
They were there when I was there.
Great. So they had a year in the Rycote space. They had 2 years in our large shared area, and then only probably within the last 6 months, they've gone to their own workshop in Oxford. And that is the perfect story. That is exactly the story we want to tell and the way we want to support people. Because otherwise it just becomes static and you're then only helping a limited range of people. So there's a desire to support. It's not just we're not just another business park. We're not that at all. We are perhaps slightly more caring, supportive, facilitator of that process.
Yeah, definitely. So what else is Sylva involved with? Because I know it's not just that building.
Wow, yeah. So, I mean, I've not even got onto the bit I do. But briefly, we work across forestry and land. The guys I work with are either foresters, scientists, or web developers. We have this kind of very strange, for a very small charity, we have 3 full-time web developers. So we work in digital platforms that support people to better manage their woodlands or to get better value for environmental eco-services. Okay. So, our flagship bit of work is something called My Forest, and it's been worked on for 10 years plus, and it has a big part of its woodland creation. So developing management plans to manage woodlands that are currently standing and are unmanaged. That not just for timber, but also for biodiversity and amenity value and all the other things that woodland can give. But now part of that is woodland creation. So, of course, we hear all the time about the numbers of trees we're encouraged to plant as a nation. And we're woefully short of that target. Like so woefully short, it's unbelievable. Yeah. But there's this desire and willingness and need, I think, for us to plant more trees. So we're conscious that that's a good thing, but it's only a good thing if we manage them. Letting trees just do their thing is not really positive for woodlands. So that's a big part of our work. And why did I go there? I think you intimated earlier about the kind of the Wood School side of things. I was given this amazing, probably once in a lifetime opportunity, I suppose, to go and create a wood school in my own vision. And that's just, let's say once in a lifetime.
Who would say no to that?
Well, it took me a long time to say yes, ridiculously. I don't know why. And I think, as we said earlier, it was a tough decision to make. But I've been there now for 4 years. We spent a lot of time in the first year. I was actually traveling as part of that time, doing a research project. But it gave me a great opportunity to test a few things out and to get a sense of what do we want to offer? What are the challenges in the furniture education world, and how might we solve them? Because we're not driven by shareholders, we're not driven by national curriculums, we're not driven by profit. We're a charity and we work in a very different way. So we have opportunities to be really selective about the work we take on. Yeah. That was. Yeah, I mean, we've had a big pandemic in the middle of that, but it's been going well.
Yeah. So it's a brilliant segue. You mentioned you went on a research trip, which is the Churchill Fellowship, and I've got tons of questions to ask you about that. What made you apply for that in the first place?
I think I hinted at it earlier or mentioned it earlier. As a tutor on a course or a leader of a course in an FE environment, you don't get this opportunity to do research. Yeah. It's just not part of the contract, and that's understood. And but actually, I'm I'm someone who's always wanted to have some, level of personal development as well. So a big part of it was selfish. I wanted to do something for me and to continue my growth.
Yeah.
And to do that, to do the project that I did also allowed me to bring something back that was positive for education in the UK. And that's what a Churchill Fellowship is. It's a travelling bursary you must travel internationally. You can travel to a maximum of 2 continents. All expenses in terms of accommodation, air flights, subsistence, food, etc. is all covered.
Entertainment.
I'm not sure entertainment was good. Yeah. that's not for the podcast, Sean. But it was, it was just an amazing opportunity. So, part selfish, part doing some good, really, for the sector.
Yeah. So, did you know at that point when you went that you'd be head of Wood School at Sylva? Okay,
no, it was a really interesting time.
Yeah, because I would have thought you're going to these places, like maybe picking up tips from all the different colleges you went to. What do you think? What did you learn on your trip that you've now implemented into the Sylva Wood School?
Right. Well, I just going back to what you were saying, I was in between the 2 jobs. So I applied for the Churchill Fellowship at Rycote Wood, and then I finished it, and I was at Sylva. I did a year in between across both. What have I implemented? Well, there were 3 key core recommendations that I made afterwards. One was that we need to provide inspirational, perhaps magical almost, opportunities for young people. I think people under the age of 18 have very limited access to these inspirational opportunities that hopefully could inspire them to be woodworkers of the future. So that was the first. The second one was to try and bridge the gap between education and the real world. And that, for me, after 14 years at Rycote Wood, seeing graduates leave, try to get jobs, try to hold jobs down, some struggle, some be successful, that I felt that our education sector is perhaps not doing everything it could. Maybe it was doing everything it could. Maybe there needed to be something else. But how do we bridge that gap? And thirdly, providing, and really connects with the incubation work, actually, providing support and good mechanisms for people who are wanting to set up in business in a world that's very expensive. So that really, the third one really built on the work we were doing with Rycote Wood's incubation workshop and the work we're doing now at Sylva. So I think that is subtly happening all the time, and it's something we're working continually to improve. The first one, the young people, I've got to be very honest, I've done a small amount of work with young people. The pandemic's come along and really just knocked that on the head at the moment. It's something I hope we get back to. We are just reviewing what we do for our next phase of things. But, it might be that it's a piece of work someone else needs to take on. But I think it's incredibly important. I had amazing opportunities. You probably did. Otherwise, you wouldn't have got to where you are. And, we need to inspire. We need to find a way of making, engaging people away from smartphones and iPads and computer games, and make the idea of doing things with your hands and learning skills and being creative. We need to make that as exciting. We're not going to compete with those digital things. We're not going to make it more exciting, but we're going to make it at least as exciting or interesting to engage people. So we've not done enough of that. You can hear, hopefully, I'm passionate about it, but the big piece of work we've done is in the middle, and that's that bit around bridging the gap. So we've created what I think is a totally unique educational program. We haven't got a good name for it. We called it our professional course, for want of a better title. But the idea is that students come to us with a basic knowledge of woodworking. They may well have studied at, say, City and Guilds level, or they may have done a few evening classes or a few short courses. We want them to be over 18, but over a 6-month period, we engage them in only making. And I say only making, but of course they're immersed in the creative process that we're going through, or they're immersed in the technical side of design, but we're not running a designer maker course. We're running a course that is about making. Okay. They learn wood machining on day one. So they are immersed in wood machines, power tools and hand tools. They are able to make the right decision about which one is commercially sensible and appropriate. We still cut dovetails, but we don't do it all day, every day. We get into, what I see as a kind of a real world kind of working environment. But I suppose the bit that makes it particularly unique is this idea that the students learn through making batch-produced objects. And they make batch-produced objects for clients. So we're making them for real customers with deadlines, with quality control issues. We can't just cut one a bit shorter if something's gone wrong, or a bit narrower, or, we have to make sure we meet those standards. And when I set out the vision for this, people kind of talked to me and said, that's not going to work. No one's going to want to come and commission you to make a batch of stools or a batch of tables or a batch of cabinets. But you've got a workforce of students who are learning. They're not going to have the skills to make things. It seemed to a lot of external people a bit of a mad idea, but the concept really was about building confidence and competence in the individuals, and you do that through repetition. So that suggests batch production. We might make a larger amount of a simple thing at the start of the course, and we might make very small amounts of complex things towards the end of the course. So as the complexity and challenge goes up, the volume might go down. And we put it into practice. I mean, it was a tough time because we started mid-pandemic. We took 5 students on. It was me and the 5 were a bubble, because at that time bubbles were a thing. And we had in that first course the 2 live projects. One was, or 3 actually. One was for a local charity, very simple thing called a resonance board. We made a beehive for a local client out of homegrown Western red cedar and oak. Beautiful thing, probably the most expensive beehive on the market, but beautiful. And we made some whiskey presentation boxes for the Oxford Botanical Garden, which is part of the Oxford University. So we learned a lot by doing those projects. And into the second iteration of the program, we had built 2 incredible relationships, one with the National Trust. So we in-house designed, production engineered, and the students developed all the jigs, designed the processes, and made small limited edition batch of 3 different designs of a stool for the National Trust. And they've been on their website, I think, now for a kind of month and a half, and they've virtually sold out. So, so that's been brilliant. And then the other relationship was a company called Joined and Jointed. So a furniture designer called Samuel Chan. He's passionate about supporting both design education and craft education. So we've worked with him to realize some of his designs. It's grown, it evolves. There's no curriculum that I can say you will make this product. And I've got 8 students signed up for September, and they don't know what they're going to make.
Yeah. One thing I was lucky enough you did a presentation while I was at Riker Wood on the fellowship. And I remember you saying one thing that stood out to you during your travels to other colleges in America was they taught, and I think this is very important, they taught the pupils about tool maintenance and blade changes. Whereas at Riker Wood, that didn't really happen. We couldn't change the blades because of health and safety. But I'm assuming you've brought that to the wood school, especially as people move out and set up their own workshop. You expect to go to a woodworking school, learn how to make, but also learn how to use the machinery for when you get it yourself, you'll know how to change it. Yeah. So how impactful was that? And what do you do now in your school? Absolutely.
I mean, there's too many things to list. I mean, from the experience, it was a once in a lifetime thing, and I gleaned so much, whether it be from America or Northern Europe. But that particular thing really hit me. The first place I visited was a university called RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology in New York State. And the tutor was away, and I met a student, and he was showing me around, and I think there wasn't a bell or anything went, but all of a sudden the students kind of stopped what they were doing, and they all migrated to the machine shop, and they were taking the machines apart, and they were polishing the beds, and they were checking cutters for chips, and they were taking bandsaw blades off, and I was thinking, this is just remarkable. Not only are they doing it, but there was not a tutor there. Someone was taking responsibility. There was either a senior student or a technician, but they took responsibility for a machine, and they cared for that over a period until they swapped and moved on to a different machine. And it was remarkable. The other thing that hit me was the cleanliness. The machine shops, and maybe to a slightly lesser extent, but the bench workshops, but the machine shops were impeccable everywhere I went, absolutely everywhere. And I didn't get sick of seeing it, but it was just, another pristine workshop. And it wasn't because it wasn't used. I mean, I was going to say,
maybe they never used it.
No. They were heavily used, but students cared for it. They looked after it. And I think, you said, did I bring it? Have I brought it back? Yeah, I mean, professional practice is crucial if you want to go and get a job or you want to run your own workshop. And I think health and safety around machines, changing blades, changing cutters on a spindle molder, whatever it might be, you can just go and buy that machine tomorrow. We could get off this call, order a machine, it arrives, and there'll be a little instruction booklet. It may not be that brilliant, but you're on your own. And I think that it's remiss actually of us in education to not engage with those things. I recognize the challenges in a formal education environment. And, maybe it's something that in time Reichert will develop and improve on. And I think they are thinking about that. But ultimately, they're probably challenged sometimes by the age of the students. I think if you're under 18, that has some implications around health and safety training for wood machinery, but it's not insurmountable. And certainly a degree student is over 18. So, yeah, for us, it's critical. We didn't do it. We can improve on that no end. I think we've put it into the program, we've embedded it, but actually I think it needs to be even more crucial critical as we go forward.
Yeah, it's not only changing the blades, it's the maintenance, because you can change bandsaw blade, but what happens if a bearing goes, and just changing the wheels out, learning the machine inside and out is so important. And as soon as you learn the machine inside and out, you'll know its capabilities and you'll be able to push yourself and do more on the machines.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think sometimes we also have to accept where our expertise starts and finishes. And, when do we need to talk to an engineer? I'm not I'm not a machine engineer. We do things to a certain point, and then but we can point out that this is a thing that you would go and get an engineer to come and look at. Things go wrong, we've got some lovely kit, but there was a flaw in the hood on our spindle molder, and it's real. How are we going to solve that? Can we put some mitigations in place now? Do we need to go back to the supplier? Is it out of action until we get that sorted? What is that real world experience? And, we have a maximum, we've been taking 6 students, but I've just recruited an amazing assistant's probably the wrong word. That's what we advertise for. But I've got this, a guy called Phil Gullum, who is also a tutor at Reichert Wood. He's joined me, and now we can take 8, and it's still a tiny group. It's still, everyone can have an opportunity and a responsibility in the workshop. Changing extraction bags, no one likes to do it, but it's a part of the job. It's something we have to do. So, to be thrown in at the deep end in your first job when someone says go and change those bags when you've got no clue what to do. All critical stuff, all good stuff.
Out of the Woodwork is brought to you by Axminster Tools. Having spent the past 50 years working with makers and creators, we understand the importance of providing the products you need, the knowledge you trust, and the committed service you deserve. As a British retailer, we're proud to support British design and quality. We take particular pride in the manufacture of our growing range of own products at our state-of-the-art facility in Axminster. From concept and design through to production, everything is done in-house. For more on our own grown products, plus top quality tools from around the world, visit www.axminstertools.com. So, with Sylva, homegrown timbers is a really, really important part of Sylva and what you do. You've got a huge wood store as well. And you've got a plot of land that people have sponsored trees as well. Is that a big part of the education in the Wood School, teaching the use of homegrown timbers and how important that is?
Absolutely. I mean, again, it's probably one of something that's a bit more unique about us. We have a 3-hectare woodland that's young. It's about 6 years old. There's 42-ish different species, and they're all planted to look at the effects of climate change. We're looking to find species that are resilient and create a woodland that's resilient to change. We know that climate's, warming, and we've had terrible, things going on recently with now we've got a whole drought and so on, wildfires, and they're not so far away anymore. These are things that are happening in the UK. So that's what the woodland's about, but it's young, so we're not actually taking any timber out of it, and we won't be within my lifetime. But yeah, of course, the students plant trees. This autumn, they'll be coppicing some timber. With the hazel, the Robinia pseudoacacia, they're trees that need to be coppiced. They're at the forefront of our wood, so you would create a woodland that has a kind of graded scale to it. So the students will be actively involved as well as theoretically through conversations with the experts on hand. We've got 3 foresters come scientists, and Paul Orsi, who's our ops director, he was the former head forester at Blenheim Estate. So we have a great relationship with them. In fact, they're, I think, next week delivering some thinnings that they've cut for us for an upcoming project. And we have a lot of oak in our store that you may be alluding to, that was donated by them, planked on site by our tenant with a mobile sawmill, and been air dried for the last 2 to 3 years. So yeah, we're trying to say something about the whole cycle. And in terms of homegrown, the reason we're passionate about it is our woodlands are I come back to it. Our woodlands in the UK are unmanaged. They could be better managed. That doesn't mean if they're just for timber that we do that in do anything negatively to biodiversity or anything else. The things can be balanced. And I think that, we as a country, I think the statistics say we're the second largest net importer of timber products in the world. That's just frightening. We're a tiny island, big population, tiny island. That has to be something we do. Look to do something about. So if we can make better use of our resources, then great. So if we can tell stories about that, if we can work with that material, if we can encourage designers, so we push back against Sam at Joined and Jointed and say, well, look, we'll make it in an American walnut for you, Sam, but we want to also work in homegrown ash. Let's make you some samples in ash, see how you get on. Let's see if we can actually make a change. So we're pragmatic and realistic. We'll never be able to, as an industry, go exclusively to homegrown timber.
That's what I was going to ask, because there's so much we can do. You just answered that we won't ever be able to solely live off homegrown timber. But do you notice it going in a way more and more homegrown timber is being used?
Not necessarily. I think the reality depends what part of the market. I think the retail world of furniture, more often than not, things are in oak or American black walnut, and they're typically an American oak or American black walnut. Because you can match the solid wood with the veneer very easily, and probably secondly because a lot of furniture is made in the Far East, and that timber has been shipped from North America to China and other countries and then brought back into Europe as product. So I think there's a lot of work to do. There's a real large area of work to do, and we're trying to do that through many things. The project with the National Trust, as an example, was they felled some trees at an estate in the Cotswolds that's part of their land. It was ash. It had ash dieback, but actually that was wasn't necessarily an issue. I mean, they were felled so that we could design and make some products from them. It was dried at Vaston Timber in Wootton Bassett, planked and dried in Wootton Bassett, kiln dried, delivered to us. We made some product. It was then put into the National Trust's system warehouse and sold. Now, that's a really lovely story, because that ash probably would have ended up being firewood. Ash and, a lot of timber in the UK is just really seen as low value. So that's an issue. We need to up people's understanding of value. We need to get people to perhaps think differently about quality. What is prime timber and what is character timber, and what should we recognise as being a reasonable standard or quality to work with. It doesn't all need to be pristine with no knots, with no because otherwise we might as well be working with plastic.
That's true.
I probably had a third point, but I've lost it.
Yeah. Well, one question is, this might be a silly question, but is there any way of making imported timber sustainable? Because if we have to do it, if we can't live off it solely in the UK, then is there anything we can do to make it more sustainable importing timber?
Well, I think environmentally, we encourage people to think about certification and provenance. Actually, this is something we talk about all the time with food. We've become very passionate now in the UK, or increasingly people are passionate about where their food comes from. And people attend farmers markets and they buy direct from the grower, or they have a veg box delivered, or, and this is, maybe not across across everybody, but it's a growing thing. We need people to think about that with timber as well. So we need to understand where it's come from. If I showed you a piece of oak that was from North America, a piece that had been grown somewhere in the UK, and a piece grown in the south of France, the really keen eye might be able to tell the difference. But if I chose them very carefully, I suspect I'd be able to get three things that look broadly similar. So we can't tell just by looking at it. We need another method of understanding the story behind it, where it's come from. So, PEFC, FSC certification schemes are important. And, imported timber, I think without that, it should be seriously questioned. We should seriously be questioning our suppliers to ask them, where has it come from?
Yeah.
And if they can't tell us, then we should really be avoiding it. The benefit of Homegrown, there's an organisation, a charity called Grown in Britain, and they hold they are the people who certify our own timber and woodlands. And it's very similar set of kind of regulations, rules, and processes. But the key difference is tree miles. We talk about tree miles. They've not travelled across the earth. We could be working with timber that's from within 50 miles of our workshop, that's travelled to a sawmill and been dried and been brought to us. And that was the point I missed earlier. That's the third thing. A challenge we have is the infrastructure just isn't there. The infrastructure of the connection between woodland forestry and woodland management and makers. Now, we know that we go and get our wood from a sawmill. It's supplied to us. It's delivered on a lorry. We can order it by telephone. But actually, what's the bit in between? And sawmilling at scale is something that we are incredibly limited. It's a very limited. It's a limiting factor in the UK, actually. So, we need to probably encourage the infrastructure to grow. And a way of doing that is putting more product out there and getting the customers behind it. So if customers demand homegrown timber, then it will be sucked through the supply chain. And I think that's something we're quite passionate about.
Yeah, it would be amazing when eventually, your woodland fully grows to be using your own trees, and because you've got a sawmill on site, you can get these small portable kilns now. Have you thought about getting one of those?
Yeah, I mean, it's a wish list thing. With this year we invested and bought a briquetting machine, so we're now sustainable in dealing with our sawdust waste.
Yeah, I love those machines.
It's like a sausage machine.
Yeah.
Just pumping out the.
Is it one where you get the extractor bag, put it in, or does it come straight out the extractor?
No, they're brilliant. I mean, I think actually that's the way to go. But on a small scale, we are small scale. So it's, you tip the bag in, make sure you're properly masked up. It's in an old shipping container, turn it onto auto, and, half an hour later, that bag you've put in has become half a bag of briquettes.
And you can sell them, and that money can go towards.
Yes. I mean, we could do. I think there's some legislation around that, but we have 2 wood waste burners that heat our workshops.
Okay.
So 2 large buildings. We probably won't generate enough waste to heat our space. So storage is a problem. That wasn't the question. I diverted. You asked me about a kiln. You said,
when anyone mentions briquette machine, let's talk about that.
So kiln, I mean, that closes the loop. That is the missing link really on our site, and we have the space. We've totally got the area earmarked for it. We're probably going to look down the route of solar kiln, perhaps topped up by a wood waste heater. One of the things they drop off, obviously temperature drops off at night because solar gain is obviously not happening when the sun's gone down, of course. So the idea may be that it could be using wood waste. So our forestry contractor, Nick, he's a tenant, so it's not our sawmill, it's not our timber, but I think in partnership with him, solar kiln on site would be amazing and really change the dynamic and allow us to tell stories even better. But going back to getting the timber out of our woodland, the coppicing is a way. I know that Seb Cox, who I just love the way that he approaches his business and everything about it. He has 2 lovely ranges that use coppiced material, and especially of the scale we're going to work at through our wood school and the production we have, we could be coppicing the timber, bringing it in, drying it, producing a range of simple products. It would be very straightforward for us to do that. And coppice rotations for something like hazel, it could be 7-8 years, and hopefully we'd get this just ongoing sustainable supply of material. So that could happen sooner rather than later. Rather than Gabriel always talks about this forester's going to come along one day, because he talks about forestry as being the longest relay race in ever. You're passing the baton to someone else. The things you plant today may not be harvested by the next generation. It might be 2 or 3 generations further on. So you need to give them something. If we don't do something now, the next generations won't. So he laughs that at some point when they thin our woodland out, our future forest, they will perhaps have an oak tree, common oak tree, next to a giant redwood, and they'll have to make a decision about which one they keep. And they're going to be some really. They're going to look and think, what has happened? There's madness. There are these different species. I think that's timber from it will be a long, long time away.
I may be wrong here, but I know some plants can't grow next to one another, and maybe it's just with like simple home gardening, some flowers don't go well with another, but I assume with larger trees, maybe let's just say an oak tree uses a really large span for the roots. Will that interfere with a redwood?
You're probably out. I'm out of my depth, but what I will say is I'll kind of reframe it and come back a different way. Is that some trees work really well together. So what you have, what we call nurse species. So things like if we were looking out, and sadly I'm not at Sylva today, but if I could show you the camera out into the woodland, the trees that have really grown quickly are things like alder, birch, and the pseudoacacia, the robinia. They're really quite tall. And we might describe them as nurse trees. So what they do is they nurse along some of the other species. So they drag them up. So if they've grown up nice and tall, they create a competition for light. And obviously, ultimately, that's what forestry, one of the big tools of a forester is this need to compete for light. So if we get them growing up tall and straight, we're going to get better quality timber, if that was our desire and our plan. So that companion planting or nurse planting, that is something that is important. We've got some Paulonia, which is a pure exotic tree, and it's quite sad because if we looked at some of the Paulonias, you see a stem that's grown up each year and then died back and grown up and died back, and it keeps sprouting from the root. But it's being killed off by frost, or it's being killed off by our climate. But what we hope, and we don't know the answer, but what we hope is, as other trees grow up around it, they might create a nice microclimate for that tree to take off. It might be that if it survives a year and into second year, maybe that will continue to grow. And I'm totally a novice when it comes to the forestry side of things, but I think, we keep reflecting back to Rycote Wood. It was a big part of my career and obviously our connection. When I taught the wood technology bit of the course at Rycote Wood, the bit where we talked about trees and woodlands and forestry was probably 10 minutes in one hour session. And that probably needs to change. And that's across the board. And I think what I found exciting is the interest from, we've already booked in visits from Rycote Wood students for this next academic year. We've engaged with some CPD training for the tutors at the Building Crafts College in London. So that they came along, they spent a day with us where we talked about homegrown timber. We walked in the woods looking at our future forest. Behind us, we actually have a woodland that's about 15 years old. We have trees beyond that are 30 years old. And we can really explain the interventions that we need to put in place to make those trees grow. So that CPD training, I think, it should be part of every woodwork student's curriculum. And I think environmentally, we've just got to be more savvy and understand where our material comes from. It's not good enough to, and I think it's not good enough to do that theoretically. It's not good enough to do that from a book or from a picture on a screen. That needs to happen in the woodland. We need people to be immersed in nature. We need them to be, hopefully getting their hands dirty and planting some trees and being part of it, because you have a different affinity with it if you do that. And I think the last 4 years I've spent at Sylva changed my thinking really. I'm probably equally passionate about the trees as I am about the making things out of the wood at the end. I think the two things are so connected.
It's very important, and like you mentioned, looking after the woodland being so important, and Sylva work with landowners. So with people, let's say with a very large, who own a lot of land, can they contact Sylva asking for help, or would you help, or do you approach those people?
No, so I think in terms of the forestry work, and again, I just caveat that I'm not an expert in it, but this piece of software called My Forest is incredible. It's free to access to a certain level. If people want to bring their own woodland up to a certain standard and get a woodland management plan, this bit of software helps them do that. It does so much more. There's a woodland wildlife toolkit, so they might understand what wildlife or flora and fauna should be. They are likely to find within their woodland, depending on where it is within the country, and what interventions they might put in place to encourage that. So whatever they want to use the woodland for, or whatever combination of things, this thing is an amazing bit of kit to help them. So I'd direct anyone to that. So our website, or My Forest, has a standalone website where people can find out all about it. We do have people come to us, or whether it be land agents, whether it be people, we're finding increasingly people want to work with us. And what I mean by that is through the Wood School. We're finding landowners are interested in how they can get better value from their timber. And we're a nice test bed for that. So, watch this space in the future for other large landowners nationally, working with us in collaboration to hopefully produce some interesting objects that can educate.
Now, before we go, I know Sylva is working with the V&A for something quite exciting. Has that got to do with homegrown timber, or is that something completely different?
Absolutely has, yeah. Thanks. And you've given me an opportunity to talk about that. We've one of the things that we're also passionate about is trying to support people who may be underrepresented in our industry. You've got to be very honest. That you look around the furniture industry and it is dominated by a workforce that are white male. And we took the opportunity 2 years ago to set up a summer school program. We're running that initially in partnership with Grown in Britain, and that will continue this year, to provide an opportunity for people to engage with our workshops and our thinking and use some material and do something very exciting. So last year we invited applications from anybody. Actually, we're not discriminatory, but we really were keen to get applications from people who identified as female or non-binary, and we had an amazing number of applications. We blind selected, so we folded the names over and just read what they'd written, and we had 9 people who fitted that bill. They're identified as female or non-binary. We brought some brilliant tutors in. Ideally, we were hoping for an all female or non-binary team, but I was part of that. So, but certainly the balance was right. The balance was the other way. And we worked with Homegrown, underutilised timber. We gave them a brief. They produced some beautiful things in 4 days. So that was last year. I think we captured the imagination of a few people, one of which is John Makepeace, who I know you interviewed last year. And he's supporting a project at the V&A called Make Good. It's a 10-year project focusing on sustainability. And we kind of all connected together and put a call out for this year's program to have 12 people come. And again, engage with Grown in Britain, certified timber, underutilised materials, and have created a brief. But the incredibly exciting thing is that the outcomes will be exhibited in the V&A Museum, in the Furniture Gallery.
Awesome.
Ultimately for 6 to 9 months. It's unprecedented in my experience. So we started actually on Monday. So I've got another seminar tonight. It's a week of seminars online with some amazing speakers act as a catalyst and preparation for a week at Sylva. They're going to come to us for a week. We're going to take them out into the woodlands. We're going to get our tenant sawmill running. We're going to process material. And they're going to have access to our well-equipped workshop and a team of tutors and forestry experts to respond to the themes that, a lot of the themes we've talked about, the broken system that we might have, thinking about innovation and opportunities to save timber from ended up as firewood, to think about the qualities of timber and the characteristics of species that, we know them because we're immersed in it. But things like sweet chestnut just isn't in the furniture industry as a material. Older, you don't really see anything, or very, tiniest pocket of things may be made out of it. So this is an opportunity for the students to come along and make hopefully at least have some incredible ideas. They're so impressive. It's kind of frightening.
So are these all their own designs?
There's no designs as yet. It's really perhaps going to be a response. It could be an idea. It could be a prototype object. It might be It might be a connection between 2 bits of wood. It might be a suggestion for a building or a structure, or a response to how we build a better ecosystem and connection between the forest and our consumption.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, it's super exciting. I've got no idea what we're going to get.
Yeah, and so whatever they come up with in the end will exhibit at the V&A.
It will. It was. I think we've not got an actual opening time, but I think it will. It will go to the V&A and sometime November or beyond. Furniture Gallery.
I'll definitely be going to that.
You've got to go, and the program Make Good. They have a symposium next spring, so look out for that. It's a 10-year program. This is effectively year 2, so I think it's going to be something to watch as the years go. Yeah. Well, Joe, thank you so much for joining me today. That was a really great chat, and I learned a lot. Even though I know about the Wood School, I learned even more than I knew before. So thank you very much. Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. And, come and join us. Come and visit sometime. Yeah, definitely. Okay, then. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye. Join us again next time for another episode of Out of the Woodwork. For more episodes, to listen and subscribe, search for Out of the Woodwork on all major podcast sites, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And for more woodworking project guides, demos, tools, reviews, and more, visit www.axminstertools.com.